Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Korsha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Well, this is week number 30, and we're going to be talking about God's gift to us of free will. I encourage you, as normal, to get a pencil and paper so you can jot things down. And before I share some coincidence miracles with you, I just want to remind you, and for those of you who are new to the show, help you think about the fact that if we don't ask God questions, if we don't reach out to Him and talk to Him, He cannot talk to us. And I've talked to God about this a lot, and I've shared on prior radio shows how important it is. So for those of you who have not thought about it yet or talked to God about it yet, you certainly can talk to God about this. And what He has inspired me and some of my friends as well to understand is, because God has given us free will, we have free will to do what we want. He did not make us robots and pre-program us to behave well, to always be good. He did not program us to be perfect. But He gives us the choice to go to Him, ask Him for directions on what to do. And if we talk to Him like a friend every day and we ask Him what to do about everything we're doing in our life, He will respond and teach us. The Bible says, ask and you will receive. The Bible also says that the only thing necessary, the one single most important thing that's necessary, is to have conversations with God. Because when you ask God what to do and you ask Him for directions, He will take care of leading you to everything else you need to know. For example, what books you need to read, what people you need to see, etc. So I just want to stress for everybody that if we don't talk to God and ask Him questions, He can't talk to us because He gave us free will. And to make it very clear, if He told you an hour ago to listen to this radio show, then you would not have free will. He would have taken away your free will because He would have told you to listen to this radio show. He might have inspired you and nudged you and prompted you, but He did not speak to you and tell you to do it. So you might have thought that it was your idea, that you thought about, listening into this radio show, and maybe you did. But when you have an idea, you don't know where it came from. It could be from your mind, could be from God, could be from the devil as well. So that's why we talk to God. That way, when we ask God a question, we know the answer and the idea is coming from Him. And this is all very well and very deeply explained in the books I have written. And the books are titled Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. So if you Google the title of the book, just Google Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles, you get a wealth of information about the book. Or you can Google wcatradio.com/miracles/ One more time, Google WCAT, that's C-O-T, WCAT, radio.com/miracles/. Okay, so the first coincidence miracle I'd like to share with you is, many of you know that I pass out little business cards to people practically wherever I am, whenever I'm inspired. I could be walking inside of a store, shopping, and I'll get inspired to say hello to someone and offer them a card about the book. I could be at a beach or at a vacation resort somewhere, or I could be at some outdoor event, and I'll be inspired to hand cards to people whenever God prompts me that He wants me to hand cards to certain people. And so I was at a beach resort one day, and I was handing out some cards. I was being inspired to hand them out, not to everybody, but some people, in fact, God would inspire me not to give them a card, because sometimes talking about God or approaching some people, especially during a coronavirus episode, could bring a lot of negativity. So I follow His inspirations, and I reach out to those He suggests, and sometimes they reject me and the book and the card, but I do what I think God is wanting me to do. So on one particular day, He inspired me to hand a card to a certain man, and the man was sitting on a park bench as I was walking by. I told him I was an author, I wrote a great book, and I'd like to give him a card about it. And he said, "What's it all about? What's the book about?" And I told him it was about coincidence miracles and how I received 3 miracles a day on average in my life for well over 50 years now. And it's a great way to live, being a friend of God. And I told him a little bit more, and he was patient. And then he lowered the boom, and he said to me, "Listen, sir, you're barking up the wrong tree. I'm a scientist, and I can't possibly believe in all this hocus pocus you're talking about. I can't believe in invisible things. I have to be able to touch it and smell it and see it. I'm a scientist. I need to have hands-on knowledge of things and not just, believe on faith." And he said, "I'm glad it works for you." And I asked God in my heart, what should I say? And I got inspired to ask Him something. So what I'm about to tell you now was what I was inspired to say. So I said, "Excuse me, but can I ask you a couple of questions?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Well, do you believe in oxygen? Oxygen, the atmosphere." He said, "Oh yeah, I believe in oxygen." And I said, "Well, you can't see that, you can't touch that. And do you believe in gravity? Gravity, the gravitational force, like magnetic force?" He said, "Of course I believe in gravity." And I said, "Well, that's invisible. You can't touch that either." And he looked at me kind of perplexed, and he said, "You raise an amazing point, and I have to be honest with you. I'm going to have to rethink my position of being an atheist." So there you have it. Asking God what to do, asking Him where to go, asking Him who to hand cards out to. He wanted to talk to that person. He wanted to shock them into reality. A scientific person who doesn't want to believe in invisible things finds out that he really does already believe in oxygen and gravity already. On another day, I was inspired by God to travel 60 miles to a resort area and walk along a boardwalk, very densely populated. A lot of people go to this place, and there's a wonderful boardwalk where a lot of shops so they can shop in. So there are a lot of people, and I could just walk along on the boardwalk and hand out cards about the book that I wrote called Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. And so I drove the 60 miles, and when I got to the end of the 60 miles, pensive a lot of times that Am I hearing God correctly? Am I doing what he wants me to do? That's always a question. We do the best we can. We ask God for inspirations. We get them and we act on them. And my book explains how to make sure you really are hearing God. It's important to have peace. If you don't have peace, don't do it. But basically, when you think God is talking to you, you will have peace, because God, when he tells you what to do, you will be convinced that it's God talking to you. And the devil is the one who causes the doubt. So anyway, I drove the 60 miles, and I was wondering if I had heard God correctly. I drive 60 miles to do this. Why couldn't I do it closer to home, etc.? And as I was getting off the highway, the last exit, I get to the bottom of the ramp of the exit, and there's a man there with a sign. I couldn't read it while I was driving, but he was begging for help, money or job. So I went by him, and I felt sorry about him. I said, "Gee, Lord, I hope you'll bless him." And he said, "Tony, why don't you pull over the car, park the car, and walk over there and talk to him?" And I said, but, and God said, "Tony, do me a favor, trust me, park the car, go over and talk to him." So I did. I parked the car, I walked over, talked to the man, and as I was walking over, I talked to God about, give him a donation, give him some uplifting comment. So I went over and talked to him. Turns out his name was Anthony, and my name is Anthony, so that was a coincidence miracle. But beyond that was the fact that he's been out of work for a long time, something like 2 years, and I had also been out of work for 2 years once in my life, as my book explains. And I did what he is doing. I also went to places with my resume, and I would stand there and hand out copies of my resume, because when you're unemployed for 2 years and you have a family, you do what you've got to do. And by the way, I did get a job that way. I did pass out resumes standing outside of a place where there were a lot of people. And one of the people helped me when they saw my resume. I was qualified, and they helped me get a job. And so I was able to help this man. And I told him, by the way, he was also 24 years old. And that's when I had my first miracle, was at the age of 24 years old. But more significant is his name was Anthony as well. And I was able to say the right things for him to help him with his job search. And so that was a great coincidence miracle, that he had the same life story event as I did in his life as well. The next coincidence miracle was that when I actually got to the boardwalk after talking to this person named Anthony about being unemployed, I was inspired by God to hand a card to a woman who was sitting on a bench as I walked down the boardwalk. And so I offer her a card and talked to her a little bit, and she asked questions about God. I was able to encourage her. And then I asked her name. I was inspired, really. God said, ask her what her name is. So I said, what's your name? She said her name was Grace, spelled Grace, Grace. And I was fascinated, because grace means the presence of God. And I told her that, and she didn't know that her name means the presence of God. And as I looked up, right in back of her, directly in back of her, there was a car parked, and the license plate on the car was 555. And the number 555 also means God's grace. It's also explained in my book, where I explained the meaning of numbers. So far on this trip to the summer resort, I met a man, Anthony, out of work for 2 years, as I was once. I met a woman named Grace, and she's sitting on a bench, and behind her is a license plate number 555. So God will never be outdone. The key is to ask God about things before you do them, and do what you really believe He is telling you to do, and He will inspire you about taking the right steps. God bless you all. I will talk to you next week.